Hello, Alex. Welcome to MS Warrior Podcast. If you'd like to tell me about yourself, maybe your journey so far, and what's been going on so far?
Hey Lee, thanks for having me. I was diagnosed about 13 years ago, back in 2008. I've made notes, which is why I'm looking down. Aged 29. It came as quite as a shock to me. I was pretty typical lad of that age, going out, played a lot of sports. I played in 2 football teams, playing twice a week. Very fit and able. I was working in what was quite a stressful job, and I think one December I started getting slurred speech and a little bit of dizziness, and I thought this isn't right, so went to see the doctor. They passes on to a neurologist, who I was very fortunate I got diagnosed very quickly with MS, which came as a massive shock and surprise, really. I tried not to let it affect or bother me. So I was offered drugs and what have you, but I sort of not that I was in. Sorry. Oh, which one?
Which drug?
I was offered a beta interferon, but I didn't want it. As far as I was concerned, I feel fine. I wanted to carry on as normal until maybe. In hindsight, I wish I started the drugs, but I think you can't have regrets, really. However, I carried on living a pretty normal life for the next couple of years, carrying on my football as before, until I returned to football training, and after a summer, and my body was just really stiff. I just thought maybe I've overdone it over the summer, but yeah, that stiffness, no matter how much I stretched or tried to run it off, it remained. I woke up the next morning with just almighty body stiffness that I'd never known before. And I think that was the point where my body said, right, you're not doing that anymore. And so that sort of leg stiffness sort of remained. And I think that was the point when I thought, okay, I've got to get me some drugs. So I pretty much carried on as normal. I worked full time. I never sort of reduced my hours or anything. I think that pretty much carried on until let's have a look at my notes. I probably carried on for another 6 years. Sorry. After 2 years, I probably had the beta interferon for about 4 years. I was absolutely fine on that. It kind of worked. I had a few relapses, but nothing not to be expected, perhaps. I was then offered the Tecfidera. That sounded nice. It was like no more injections anymore. So I thought, well, let's try it in pill form. Okay, a different drug, but pills. But my body just really didn't like that, and I was told to.
Did the NHS tell you officially failed 2 drugs?
No, it was nothing like that. It was just I asked my MS nurse. I said, getting a bit fed up with these injections, can I try a tablet instead? And fair play to her, she said, yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we can get you one.
Usually the criteria is you have to fail 2 drugs to have HSCT in this country. So I'm really shocked that they actually didn't mention that to you.
Well, there was no option of HSCT to me at the time. It was I was just transferring to.
Did you ask for it?
No. To be honest, I always knew about HSCT. Back when I was diagnosed, the NHS used to do these sort of newly diagnosed classes, and they were sort of really helpful. I remember one week there was a guy who came down from the MS Society, and he spoke about exciting developments and what have you, and he spoke about HSCT amongst other things. And that one just sort of struck a chord with me, really. It was just like, oh, wow, you can reboot your immune system, sort of getting rid of the old and start again from scratch. And so I did kind of look into HSCT sort of back then, but it was only Chicago that was maybe sort of that I was kind of noticing, really. And the fact that they were offering treatment for what was back then £250,000, it was just like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I didn't pursue HSCT at the time. So I was moving on to Tecfidera, and like I say, my body just didn't like it. I was told, keep taking it. It's just your body adjusting. It's a good drug. It works. So I carried on taking it, and I think I took it for maybe a few 2-3 more weeks maybe, and I just said, no, that's it. I've got to stop. But actually, I didn't say this to the MS nurse. It was just like, this is just me. I've got to sort of see how I respond by not taking it. And actually, things just kind of eased off a little bit, and I started to feel a bit better for not being worse on the drug. And so I went back after a couple of weeks saying, okay, well, hopefully my body has just got some sort of balance again. And I started taking it, and just immediately my body just started playing up all over again. And I sort of called up my MS and I said, look, I've got to stop. This is what I've done. I've stopped. I've started again. This drug is just doing bad things. And it turns out that, yeah, that drug just, I mean, I'm sure this is not the case for everyone, but this is just my instance. My body just sort of went into a great big relapse, having taken the drug. And I would say,
symptoms did you with that relapse?
I would say my symptoms back then, they were exacerbated by this drug. So I would say they were sort of mild. I was naturally, the stiffness was still there in my legs, very much so. A little bit of bladder control. Cognitive, I was always largely okay. A little bit of word finding, but not too much brain fog. Fatigue, fatigue was a big one. I think those were the three main ones that I remember. So yeah. And this drug just sort of, like I say, exacerbated, just sort of brought all those out. But the drug was devastating. I felt like I'd gone from being reasonably able to being sort of one reasonable relapse away from being in a wheelchair. It was, I mean, in hindsight, of course, 2020 hindsight, I wish I never took the thing. But like I say, it was just devastating. So, and that was the point when I thought, I've got to do something about this. It's like, bless the NHS, they gave me what I asked for, sort of the drug, but you know what, I've got to start looking further afield. And so I looked into HSCT again a little bit, but actually it was quite funny, really. A friend of mine in Australia sent me a link just maybe a few weeks later, saying, Alex, have you seen this? Here's a video of a lady in Australia, Christy Cruz, going to Russia. And I think it was on their sort of panorama programs, 60 Minutes, I think it's called. And it just opened my eyes, really. I hadn't seen anyone's experience of HSCT. And whereas perhaps before I was only thinking that I could get this treatment in Chicago, it opened my eyes up to other countries. I don't think I'd heard of Mexico doing treatment at the time, but certainly the 60 Minutes showed me Russia. And you know what? I sort of thought back and thought, wow, did I actually hear that Russia, as well as Chicago, were offering the treatment? But for whatever reason, just thought, well, I can't go to Russia. That just sounds like a terrible place to go and have such treatments. But this 60 Minutes just opened my eyes. And the more I looked into Russia, it was just the more of a no-brainer this place became. And hearing and reading about Dr. Fedorenko, it was just, wow, this guy is incredible. He's a neurologist, he's a hematologist, he's a something else and a something else. This guy is incredibly intelligent. And so I then pursued Russia. And I think I found it very difficult to find any sort of official medical reports or anything on Russia. But I did sort of fall back on using Facebook groups and various online forums of sorts. And I was getting lots of anecdotal evidence from people directly saying, I've been to Russia. I've had a fantastic experience. It's worked for me. And
from Anastasia?
No, not necessarily from Anastasia. I mean, I did sort of, in the research, sort of discover Anastasia was...
Who said they had a fantastic time?
Oh, I couldn't name names. There was quite a few people. No. Oh, no, not that... Not that I'm holding back any names, but there was just quite a few names back then. And again, we're talking several years, the best part of several years ago, really. So, but I was just hearing lots of positive things. So, and even though I couldn't find the official reports, anecdotally, I was hearing lots of good things. And I had little reason not to believe these people. I mean, they were on Facebook. Okay, there's not a lot to be trusted on Facebook, but these appeared to be genuine people, and of course they responded to my questions. It all seemed very genuine. So, so like I say, Russia then seemed like an absolute no-brainer.
It must have still been nerve-wracking to take that leap of faith to go to Russia. No, not really. No, I felt that. I think once upon a time I heard the people saying, "Oh, MS sufferers are risk takers. They'll sort of pursue whatever." But the more I read into Russia and just heard people's stories and what have you, it just sounded like. I mean, I still had age on my side. I was still a reasonably young person. So, and of course, the younger you are, apparently the better it works. And of course, the chemotherapy sort of. I mean, I didn't know what to expect with the chemotherapy, but is it 4 days? 4 days?
Yes, yeah, pretty much 4 days worth. But I think as an MS sufferer, you go through so much, and day to day, it's hard work. And you know what?
In what way? In what way?
Oh, well,
in what way would it happen?
Well, I'm sure you know yourself, Lee. It's like just your daily challenges of waking up with MS and then going through your day and struggling with fatigue and what have you. You know what? A bit of treatment. Well, I mean, like I say, you've already lived with so much. What is a bit of treatment?
You just come to the point where you think, I have to do this. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. And it wasn't just doing it for me. I was doing it for my fiance. Thing about MS is that in relationship, it's such a shared condition. It's not just me, one person suffering. The other person suffers almost just as much. So being that we were planning to spend the rest of our lives together, I didn't want to be that person in a wheelchair. I was hoping I had a choice, and I felt that this was my only choice for that not to happen, not to have my wife care for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Of course, all these things go through your head when you get diagnosed. You're constantly thinking about that. I was myself. You know, you're just thinking, what can I do? And like you've done yourself, you've looked into what you can do, and you did. That's quite commendable.
Oh, well, thank you. But I just don't think I had an option. It was just like, look, this is something I've got to do. And what was slightly refreshing is that, like I say, talking about Chicago and £250,000, Russia was a fraction of the price at what was about £40,000 to £50,000 back then. and that I felt was okay. I mean, obviously it's a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, you know what? Beg, steal, or borrow, do it. It's not a massive amount of money. It's doable, and yeah, I got a lot of good people around me, friends and family, and we fundraised and we managed to raise the money. So, and as I've sometimes said to other people who sort of um and ah about the thought of raising that sort of money, it's like, well, if you've got MS, I mean, you're not going to be able to work. The MS is going to make you broke anyway. But if you pursue HSCT and you're broke for having it, well, at least you're broke and you have your hopefully better health.
I mean, what are your plans for the future? Like, are you just gonna get married and normal?
Well, I've been married a few years now. Back in 2012. Oh, no, that's all right. We were married.
Congratulations.
I would say going forward, my hope was to have a family, and again, not wanting to be cared for. I wanted to be. I didn't want to be a dad in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So that was where I saw HSCT as hopefully my key window. I don't know, something that was my aim to have in order to enable me to be an effective father and husband. Yeah. So I suppose looking to the future, being I've had HSCT, we now have a near 2-year-old little lad, Aidan, who's absolutely brilliant, and HSCT has enabled me to be an active father. So whereas I mentioned earlier that I felt that I was one relapse away from potentially being stuck in a wheelchair, the HSCT was fantastic.
What stage were you at when you had HSCT? You still relapsing?
Yeah, I was officially relapse and remitting on arrival, and Dr. Fedorenko's MOT he gives you. There's nothing he doesn't check. It's something to experience, really. But yeah, he then told me that he thinks I was just crossing over into secondary progressive. Which probably explains quite a lot, because I never felt like I was recovering from my relapses, really, that I was having up until that point. I would say that I arrived in Moscow in a wheelchair, and it perhaps sounds cliche, but I didn't use that wheelchair on the way home. I did through the Russian airport, because they told me to, but I came out the other side of Heathrow just using my walking stick. The treatments, I was amazed at how quickly it worked for me. I have videos which I occasionally look back on, and I was so heavily reliant on my walking stick if I wasn't in a chair. I mean, I was back then in and out of a chair. If I was going on a big day out somewhere and it's going to be a lot of walking, I'd either use my mobility scooter, or there was a backup wheelchair. But the rest of the time I was just using my walking stick. My walking stick was
You must have had a very aggressive form of MS that you.
Yeah.
If you're relapsing and remitting and in a wheelchair as well. So.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I suppose if it took 2 years after diagnosis and then another 6 years from that point of my last football training session, 6 years to being in and out of a wheelchair, then yes, I guess that would be maybe considered to be quite aggressive.
Okay.
I was. If I walked without a stick in the house, I'm sure, like many MS sufferers, sort of know that you always hands. You're sort of plotting your journey, sort of looking where can I put my hands as stability. So that was me. I think I was pretty focused when I was in Russia. I saw it as a hopeful turning of a corner, really. So I was anything that I'd sort of maybe previously heard from people about their experiences. I'd heard that not long before I'd gone, Panorama had done a show of a few people who had HSCT in this country. And one guy was incredibly positive, and there was another fella who really was dramatic, and he said it was just awful. And I remember a quote he said, "If I had a choice between doing HSCT again and going one round with Mike Tyson, I would choose Mike Tyson." And I thought, wow, that's pretty extreme, really. Absolutely. And I thought, I'm sure HSCT can't be that bad, especially given this other guy's positivity. And so I read up on the important stuff about the treatment that I was to receive and the sequence of it and what to expect. However, I didn't look into, and I wasn't interested as to how they were going to make me feel. Of course, I've heard of chemotherapy and other people's experiences of that, but however, I've not had chemotherapy before, so this was going to be all new to me. So I decided to set up a blog, and I wanted to sort of record my experience. I had also read other people's blogs. They were quite wordy and sort of, I don't want to say negative, but they didn't. They didn't make it look. I don't want to say pleasant. That's not the right word, but they didn't make it look easy. So I decided I want to write the blog that I wanted to read, and I didn't want it to be dramatic. I just wanted to sort of report it as I saw it. But I would say that my experience in Russia was nothing short of fantastic. I mean, I watched your podcast with Mark Gilligan, and he sort of echoed something very similar. He said, "What a fantastic experience." And you know what? It really was. I mean, you sort of imagine a stay in hospital as get in, get out. However, Russia was absolutely nothing like that at all. I wouldn't say it was like a spa, but I was so unbelievably comfortable there and so well cared for. I pretty much got myself into like a Zen-like state, and just sort of sat back. And that's maybe the part of the beauty of it. I just sat back, let them give me the treatment, the drugs that I needed, and just let them do it to me, really. The stem cells being extracted, the drugs that they used was comfortable. I didn't sort of feel anything really from it. Being hooked up to the blood sort of dialysis machine, which separates the stem cells. That's a long sit down, sort of sit and wait for that to happen. I think that was a few hours, but that was fine. Then came the chemotherapy. Now I really didn't know what to expect, and of course, this is the one thing that I was slightly apprehensive about. And I'm not saying this because it's easy to say, but I remember my experience was the chemotherapy may have well been water. I didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel anything sort of as it was being infused. I didn't feel any adverse reaction afterwards. I slept easy that night. and that was all 4 days. It wasn't difficult. There were some
No sickness.
no. I mean, this is my experience. I felt no sickness, no bad reaction really. I did get a few hallucinations, which was interesting. Weird people walking into my room. There were no people walking in, but I thought they were. However, so it's chemotherapy, so it does horrible things to your insides, mainly your gastro. So sort of. I never felt any sort of stomach nausea or anything, so I was lucky there. But yeah, so going to the toilet for about a month afterwards wasn't the most pleasant or comfortable experience. But yeah, that was the worst what the chemotherapy did to me. So anyway, so once all that was passed, I got my stem cells back, and even the receiving those back in through my neck. Again, I've heard some really dramatic stories, and dare I say, Christy Cruz's videos sort of showed her being. She didn't find it very comfortable, but like I said, like the rest of my treatment, I just sat there, lay there even, and just let them do what they needed to do, and it was fine. I didn't find any pressing down on the stomach, or to be honest, it's been so long, I can't remember what it was suggested I could feel, but I didn't really feel anything. The only thing I do remember was the chill of the stem cells sort of going back in, and the famous taste of tomatoes in the mouth. But that was about it. So up until that point, the whole treatment had been pretty smooth. And like I say, us MS sufferers have been through a lot. You know what? Bring it all on, even if it is around with Mike Tyson. Bring it on. I can do this. But it was nothing like that.
Like Mark said, I don't want to sound like I'm on the payroll, but as Mark said, they got 20 odd years of experience, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is all part of the sort of the research that I did in advance. It was like, oh, wow. So there's me sort of looking at Chicago, and Chicago's only been doing this a few years. And yet here's Russia and Dr. Fedorenko, and he's treated by far the most amount of people, I believe, of all HSCT for MS around the world. So all the reason for the no-brainer. But what was interesting was that the doctor said, how he's been able to refine his treatment over time. And that was quite interesting because, and you know what, in fairness to the guys who had the treatment in this country on the NHS, they use the same protocol as they do in Chicago, I believe. And I think they absolutely nuke the body with chemotherapy. And perhaps that is why the guy really suffered and had a difficult time. Whereas Dr. Fedorenko said very proudly that he's been able to refine it and I guess lower the dose in time to sort of still be effective, but actually not, like I say, nuke the body. And to some extent, it made me nervous because I was just like, no, just nuke me, just get rid of it. But here I am talking about it.
I'd be the same way, to be honest. It's just like
absolutely,
me,
Yeah, so. But like I said, he was very proud, and so either way, his dosage worked, and it was fine. So I then went into isolation. I think I was very fortunate. I was only in there for five days, something like that. And what was interesting, I think it was by day 3 or 4, I think I noticed that my fatigue had lifted. And yeah, absolutely. And considering that was for me one of the, well, as I'm sure for all of us.
Two things for me is brain fog and fatigue.
Absolutely.
That's it. Stop the progression without a doubt, number one. Brain fog and fatigue, well, that's a bonus,
Yeah.
Just stop the progression, that that'll do it for me.
Yeah, Lee, you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't go into HSCT sort of hoping or doing it for the improvements. You're doing it to hold everything, and everything else is absolutely a bonus. It'd be a shame not to get any bonuses. Naturally, you still want those, and you feel slightly shortchanged had you not get it. But you're right; you're only going for the only going to halt. But yeah, no, I was amazed. I wasn't expecting it. Because I was in isolation, to some extent, you've got to kind of keep your room tidy. You can't expect someone else to come in and tidy for you because you're supposed to be on your own. But what I found was that I was tidying my room. I was moving the clutter. I was clearing the dishes. I was getting myself undressed and dressed ready for bed. I was going brushing my teeth. And then I realized that I'd just done all this sort of one after the other and not needing a break between every single little thing as I would have done. And also I'd realized that as I was moving, the rooms are massive, but I realized that I was no longer like Tin Man, sort of shuffling as I was turning. I was actually turning at the hip as well. And I was realizing that, wow, not only is my fatigue appear to have lifted, but I seem to have more range in my movement. And so that I really wasn't expecting sort of results that quickly. So I was absolutely itching to go out for a walk as soon as I was allowed out. Because naturally I was just intrigued. Well, how's my walking? And my walking was a lot better. I think my feet my feet used to sort of stick out quite a bit, and I'm not really sure why that was, but they did. They sort of kind of straightened up to sort of a normal gait, if you like. And I then noticed that I was no longer looking at the floor, sort of looking for all the wobbles and imperfections that I was just bound to trip over. I found that suddenly I had the feeling in my, because I guess, thinking back, I didn't really have any, I had almost no feeling below the waist. Very, very little. I mean, there was a little bit, but not much. Yeah. But I suddenly realised that actually I was starting to feel my legs again, and I could feel the floor underneath my feet. And that gave me the confidence to no longer sort of be constantly focusing down. I was actually looking up and looking at my surroundings whilst I was walking. And that was a little bit liberating, if you like.
Did you have any feelings about the roller coaster that people talk about? That the symptoms falling back when you had it?
That's an interesting one. I don't seem to recall having the extremes. I'm sure I had better days, worse days, but I didn't have any real downs. Yeah. I think I was just, maybe I was on a roller coaster of positivity, and I felt so unbelievably lucky and blessed to have had the treatment that, and Dr. Fedorenko said that a large part of your recovery is down to positive mental attitude. And so I think I was just sort of buzzing from the fact and just focusing on being positive, and for the fact that fatigue and my walking was quickly improving. And that was just my focus. Yeah. And so as for the ups and downs, I'm sure I did, but I don't really recall having any extremes. No. I was also very lucky after treatment that, again, I think this is down to Dr. Fedorenko's sort of refining of the chemotherapy, that I was able to return back to work after a month. I sit behind a desk, sort of sat down working, certainly nothing physical, but I felt well enough to be able to get back to work. So,
good. Yeah, I think that'll be very inspiring for a lot of people that hear this.
Good, I hope so.
Will be. It's that's why I'm doing this. So people can hear stories like yours and then see what you can do, because I think we all know the NHS aren't really rolling out for people with MS. This is available. You've had to do it off your own back and then go search for it. Well,
Yeah, yeah. God bless the NHS. We love it, but it's not. I think with the MS, it's not as helpful as it could and should be, really, especially with the neurologists too. I mean, they really do try to talk us out of HSCT and what have you, and the MS nurses. I think to some extent they're between a rock and a hard place between us and the neurologists, so they can't sort of nail any sort of colours to the wall or whatever you. But yeah, so my neurologist, he wasn't the worst. I mean, I've heard some pretty shocking stories from people from what their neurologists have said. It's like, you go out to Russia, you'll come back in a box. It's just like,
did they offer you some after treatment when you came back home? The hematologist and that's to check your blood count.
Yeah.
To make sure you're recovering well.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I can't talk them down. They did offer to help. I did a couple of weeks before going to Russia. I did get an email forwarded from my MS nurse. It didn't sound like she had written it. It sounded like it came from somewhere else, and she was just forwarding it. And it said that, yeah, you go to Russia, we might not be able to treat you when you come back. Okay. And it was like, well, you can't do this. You're the NHS. You're supposed to help me. Like, for example, if I was to go to Russia and have a boob job and it turned out to be botched, and I come home, the NHS would help me. If I was an alcoholic and with a new liver I carried on drinking, the NHS would still help me. However, if I go to Russia and have some self-indulgent HSCT, you won't help me. I think that's just incredible. So this email just sounded, too incredible, too stupid. And if my understanding of the NHS is true, is like, well, actually, you can't really say that. You have to treat me. So I disregarded that email. My neurologist, bless him, he did ask some pretty stupid questions. He did say, well, what are they going to do? They're going to insert the stem cells in your brain. He's like, well, no, they don't do that. So I ended up sort of talking him through the treatment. And he ended up, at the end of quite a long conversation, dare I say, I was actually educating him. And at the end of that conversation, he said, well, when you come back, we will support you. And that was all I needed to hear. And one thing that was quite interesting part of that conversation, it occurred to me that actually, okay, this is my opinion, that MS isn't actually a neurological condition. It's got neurological ailments, naturally, but first and foremost, it's a blood disorder because it's autoimmune. So therefore, why do the drugs that we keep getting, they're all sort of, they aim for the neurological. So, and as I said to my neuro, I said that, but I'm going to see a hematologist to cure me. So therefore, it's a blood disorder. And he found that sort of at least quite interesting. And bless him, he's even sort of gone off on his own tangent regarding HSCT and stem cells. And he's now read up on it, learnt it, and he's now doing talks on it in his own sort of neurological field. So exactly how far he's gone with that, I don't know. But it sounds like I've learned it. At least that's one euro in our favour.
I don't think it's quite there yet.
No.
MS nurses maybe, but the neurologists, we're just not there. with getting HSCT is a good thing.
No, absolutely not. And it
can work.
Yeah, and it's scary. It's like they're a bit of a force. The neurologists, they have such, dare I say, they have such egos. It's like stuff that they know nothing about. They feel like that they know everything about HSCT, for example, and you know, I kind of find it a little bit disgusting, really. If in my job I work in video production, if I didn't keep up with trends and with the latest skills, I would lose my job.
Yeah.
However, neurologists, HSCT is quite a big one for MS sufferers, potentially. Why aren't they trained up? Why aren't they trained, taught, made to understand what this treatment actually is and its benefits? Mm-hmm. And like I say, even that maybe it's not a neurological condition, it's actually a blood disorder.
It's quite obvious they don't. You know, if you say, a lot of people say, what's MS? And you tell them what it is. They say, how do you get it? And they said, well, I don't know. And then you ask the neurologist or doctor the same thing, and they don't have a clue. And they have a vague idea. Maybe it could be environmental and partly hereditary. But it's still unclear. That's still a vague line to track, you know. But they don't know what causes it. They don't know.
No, and
there is means of treating it, but they still will not go that. They'll give you all the drugs in the world, but you'll never treat it.
And it's quite scary. It's the thought that potentially it's these drugs that's holding HSCT being pushed. It's like the cost of the drugs for 1 or 2 years is the cost of the treatment. I believe that.
I'm glad you said that. I don't want to keep. I feel like I'm beating down the NHS all the time. I've nothing against that.
No. Yeah, we love the NHS. We do.
NHS, the first line, they're absolutely a godsend. It's amazing. But the neurologists, the suits, I've got very little respect for it. You know, there's some that are amazing. But a lot of it, particularly mine, you just don't want to know.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. That's why I'm going to Russia, because, you know, it's in the same situation with yourself. You think, well, you know, I've got to do it. I've got to help myself because they won't.
I think, that is one of the scariest sides of MS is that you'd like to think that MS, I mean, there's a lot of people in the UK that have it. You'd think it was well known, but it's, as you say, it's not known much. And even though you've been given the diagnosis, you've got a neurologist, you've got your MS nurse, and you've got your GP to some extent. You'd like to think that you've got those 3 people, they've got your back. Yeah. But you feel so alone because they don't know. Your neurologist certainly doesn't know. And one thing I find a little bit frightening is that how neurologists, we're not beating down the NHS and not neurologists. It may come across that way, but I'm really not. It's just we wish for more understanding. So neurologists, they love a score. So if there's anything physical, so like the physical scale, I forget what it's called, the DLSS score, the physical score. They can sort of they can mark it down. It's like, okay, so this is the person's physical score. The person has fatigue. Okay, there we go. Continence and what have you. And you know what? If it is a point scoring thing, this is where the person is. But when it comes to quality of life, there just doesn't seem to be a score for that. And it's almost like the neurologists aren't so interested in that. And so I've spoken to people who have had HSCT and they were primary progressive, and they would say physically they're not fantastically better. However, they have not got worse.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the main thing. But what they have said is that their fatigue has eased, their brain fog, their cognitive have massively improved, their toilet control has improved.
Yeah.
Now, to a neurologist, they would struggle to tick box or score that. So when it's those sort of things, sometimes it sounds like they appear to not understand. And I think that's where maybe there feels like a distance between the patient and the neurologist, perhaps.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, and it's unfortunate. But that's why I'm doing this podcast now, just to get it out to as many people as possible. To say, well, you're not on your own. I had complete faith in the NHS and thought they would help me. It just leading me around, run around in circles, saying, "Oh, yeah, we'll try to." What they said is wait and see approach, which is we'll wait and see how you're doing. But at the time, I was quite active. I was quite a physical sports person, with like boxing and doing all that kind of stuff, and I was physically the fittest I've ever been, but obviously progression sets in, and you have to suddenly stop doing all that, or slowly bring it down and stop doing it. But I think personally, because I did do that, that's why I'm not in a wheelchair now. I said, you yourself, you mentioned you're doing sports and stuff like that, and this is where the fine line where I'm not sure what helps and what doesn't. Well, I'm thinking because I was so active, that slows it down. Whether the neurologist, for example, will say no, the drugs have slowed it down. Well, when I was diagnosed, I was put on nothing, absolutely nothing, for 15 years. So obviously progression kicked in, and then secondary.
Nice. Was that your choice, like mine? I mentioned the 2 years that I went without drugs, and that was my choice. The 15 years that you mentioned, was that yours, or? Sorry, was
your choice?
Sorry, was the 15 years your choice, or was that?
Oh no. Well, thinking about it, they said they didn't want to put me in drugs because of side effects.
Right. I think that was part of my initial thought, was for the 2 years. But yeah, no, that's scary that they didn't want to put you on the drugs. I think any MS sufferer, even from day one, should be given the option. And
yeah, I believe that.
And lo and behold, hopefully one day one, they'll say, "Would you like some HSCT to nip it in the bud and get rid of the MS before it does any damage, so you can carry on playing sport, you can carry on living."
You should have offered me drugs straight away. I'm diagnosed. You should have offered me AIDS.
Yes.
Even if it slowed it down, they never actually explained that the drug will slow it down. Never explained that. And if they did, I would have took it straight away. But they didn't. I just carried on boxing, whatever I was doing, and the progression kicked in.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's like you said. Wait and see. It's like it's that I think that's again the divide between the neurologists and us. Is that
I've been on radio saying this. For me, it feels like with the neurologist, for example, I won't say the NHS because that's a broad term. That includes frontline NHS, because we get all the respect in the world for. But the neurologists, they took a gamble on me, like giving me no drugs whatsoever. And of course, stressing comes in. But if had I been on a drug, I may have failed it. So that from one notch on the car Or, if the criteria means you have to fail 2 drugs and then you're up for HSCT,
Yeah.
I was never given the opportunity to be on a drug to fail it.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? It's
the criteria is what is kind of most frustrating and very disappointing in many cases. I think it's like I think I spoke to. Fortunately, I have a distant cousin of mine. His wife is a neurologist in Sheffield, and she was part of the HSC trials. So I had a long conversation with her before I went to Russia. She just wanted to see that I was okay and I was making the right decision. So that was an interesting conversation. But she also did say to me, talking about criteria, is just that I don't think you're suitable for this treatment. It's like, well, I'm relapse remitting. I'm only then 29. It's like, according to her, not hers, but the scales, the criteria that were put in at the time to be considered for any sort of research, was that I was too far gone. The treatment would not have worked for me, and yet.
What does too far gone mean? Is that saying because you said before you're borderline relapse and remitting, going to second progressive. Fedorenko told you that.
Yeah.
Well, did they not tell you that? Because it told me, because when it was secondary progressive, they said, well, they can't give me HSCT because I'm secondary progressive. You didn't give me the option when I was relapsing. The option was never there.
Yeah. It's almost like
it seems to me they'll do everything they can to avoid it. They won't want to touch it. So.
It does appear that way, and I think that was one thing that was quite refreshing talking to Dr. Fedorenko, is that everything is a case-by-case basis. And like I said, I know someone who is a primary progressive, and they were still treated. And like I said, it worked for them.
Yeah. That's why I was surprised when you said they said you're too far gone. Funnily enough, it was Sheffield that told me that was, we can't do anything from you from second progressive.
Yeah.
So I think Sheffield did the same.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You're too far gone.
Yeah. It's like that they.
Sorry, go on.
All I was going to say is it's almost like they want us to have MS on their terms. Sadly. And if you go against the grain and say, I'm going to do this my way, I'm going to Russia, I'm going to get rid of this MS, it's doing me head in, I feel like this is my only option as far as I'm concerned, and as soon as you sort of come up with something like that, they sort of they kind of freeze and then start.
I think you took the ball by the hand before other things start to happen. I think you've already said that you start to have cognitive problems and maybe urinary problems, or it was creeping in. But you took the ball by the hand and you said, no, I'm going to get started now on my terms. So I'm not waiting for anybody anymore.
I think you've got to, absolutely. And I'm a massive, I'm sure you can probably tell, I'm a massive advocate for HSCT. I think it's fantastic. It absolutely worked for me. Okay, I'm not running. I'm not playing football again, but I'm walking. I'm still stiff, but I'm able to play. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a big advocate of HSCT.
You still doing physio and things like that?
I did do. I kind of took it as far as I felt I could until I didn't feel like I was getting any more improvement. I could and should have carried on, but it gets to a point where it starts costing money and things to pay for.
Yeah. Well, still, your journey so far is still quite inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I want to do my bit. I mean, like I said, HSCT has been fantastic for me. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people helped get me to Russia. I fundraised the money, and a lot of people donated and helped. So I feel like, not that I must, but I want to pay it forward. So whenever I come across another, I will do everything I can to help that person, whether that be help in what to expect in Russia, what sort of stuff to prepare and take to Russia, how to fundraise potentially. I always want to help. So yeah, no, thank you. That's very kind to say, Aaron. Inspiring, but I just want to be one of many people that have had this treatment and can speak about it so positively, because it is, in my experience.
Hopefully, you telling this story, hopefully that will inspire others to do something similar to what you've done.
Thank you. I mean, my pipe dream, as well as it was kicking a football again, still, like I say, not there yet. Well, I can kick a ball, just badly. But like I said, it was to be an active father. And as I said once upon a time, that I wanted to be able to pick up my child and put them on my shoulders, as my dad did for me. And back then, I certainly wouldn't have been able to do that. But these days, I could do that. Whether I still trust myself enough, I'm not sure. But you know what? I could do that.
Yeah.
So I think I could. I mean, he's still not quite 2 yet, so he's not the heaviest lump.
Okay.
But
I mean, if it was me in the same situation, I'd just the state I'm in now, I just wouldn't trust myself. But after HSCT, maybe that'll change. Maybe it won't.
Well, that's it. It's
that feeling that I don't trust myself.
Well, all going well, and hopefully you, like me, that confidence will return.
No.
I mean, I walk out on the street, my foot does catch the odd paving slab. So I'm not I'm not 100%, if you like, but I'm good enough, and I've got the confidence to be able to. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Thanks for sharing the story. And
no worries.
I think we'll wrap it up.
I mean, I don't know if it helps. I mean, I don't want to drop a plug, but I do have the blog that I mentioned, which I hope does help other people. I mean, like I said, I did read a lot of blogs back in the day, and they were very wordy. I wanted to create and write the blog that I wanted to read, and so I try to keep it lighthearted. It was, as I saw it, it was. I try to keep it concise. I did videos, so there's lots of information and videos of how things were going. And I really hope that that's beneficial to other people. That's why I did it. The address is letsgetrid.com. And like I say, I can only apologise. I haven't updated it in a long time, and I really should. So hopefully this...
I'll if I put this on YouTube, which I probably will, I'll put that link in the show notes below. And,
wonderful.
Hopefully it'll help people.
And there's little bits in there. I actually did manage to get Dr. Fedorenko and Anastasia to sit down with us in front of a camera and just sort of talk about various stuff and questions that people ask me to forward. So there's little bits, extra bits there too. So. Like I say, I wrote it to try and help other people that actually HSCT isn't daunting. And in my example, it really wasn't.
Yeah. I'd rather try it on my terms. And whether it works or not, at least it's on my terms. I made that choice. So I understand that it might not work, but I always say I'd rather try and fail than never try at all.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're 100% right. But But you know what, Lee, you sound like a massively positive person, and I think get yourself out there, like me, just lie back, let them give you all the drugs, let them do what they need to do, and just think forward, think positively, think, by the time I get out of the other side of Russia, my MS will be gone. And you know what, actually, I think previous podcast, Mark said it as well. I don't feel like I have MS. That's like what Mark said. And very quickly in Russia, I felt the same too. And hopefully, you will very quickly feel that too. And you know what? That's reason to feel positive on its own, to sort of wake up in the morning and actually, I mean, I don't know how I would describe having MS. Maybe it's just like having a constant weight on your shoulders. That weight was lifted. So...
Oh, good.
Just good. like I say, sit back, let them do what needs to be done, think forwards, and you've got a lot of physical recovery and recuperation to come, and I'm sure you'll make massive improvements.
Okay. Also,
positive mental attitude.
I think we'll wrap it up now.
No worries.
Thanks for your time and your story.
No worries. You're very welcome, Lee.
Yeah, I'll get it out there for everybody else. So,
all right.
Thank you.
No worries. Take care.